So last week we hit 50 episodes. We uploaded episode number 50 where I spoke to Jack Hallows for the second time on this podcast. So that's half a century, which is absolutely mad. It's almost a year since I started this podcast. It doesn't feel like that. It's flown by. I've been having so much fun. And I just want to thank everyone who's come along on this journey with me, whether you've started following from the last episode or from the start. So today I want to look back at episode 1, essentially, where I spoke about what the Lonely Chapter is in quite a short form episode. It's my first episode. So I want to sort of circle back to that and just dive into it a little bit more and just go a bit deeper and sort of look at how to navigate that Lonely Chapter. So this podcast is obviously called The Lonely Chapter, but it's all about learning as much as possible from people around me, from the people I speak to in the world, learning about the world, learning about their experiences, about the life lessons that they've taken away from their own experiences, and help me and you, the listener, develop ourselves into better, well-rounded people. So to start off, what is the Lonely Chapter? And if you don't know already, then the Lonely Chapter is this idea created by Chris Williamson and Alex Hormozi. The idea is that during a period of self-development, you're going to start building new habits and making new choices that start to pull you slightly away from your current set of friends as you start to develop. But you're also not developed enough to be hanging around your new set of friends or the new set of people. So you're in this lonely chapter where you've drifted away, maybe your roads aren't aligned with the people around you, and it can be that sort of lonely feeling and that uncertainty. So why did I name this podcast after this idea? To answer that, I have to go back to December 2023 when I saw Chris Williamson for the first time in his live show in London, and that was the first one he did, so it was quite a small show. And one of the biggest talking points that sort of resonated with me at that show was the Lonely Chapter, and he'd been speaking about it on the podcast for a while, and it sort of resonated as well. But after that show, again, it really resonated with me, and I sort of saw pockets of my life where I'd been through it. At that time, I was considering a podcast, but I hadn't really made any moves to make it happen or anything to action it. So 1 or 2 months after that show, I decided to just start putting the pieces together and start working out the name of the show, the artwork, what the show would look like. And it comes from that Chris Williamson thing, or the essay that he likes to read out, where the only thing that is doing the thing is doing the thing. So I decided to do the thing and go for it. So when I was looking for a name for this podcast, I was sort of going down the usual avenues, lots of writing down random names on paper, working out if they're taken, using AI to try and come up with names, trying to describe what the show was going to be. And nothing was really grabbing me. Like, there was a lot of options, but nothing was really grabbing me. And one day, I don't know how it happened or whether I was listening to something again, he mentioned it, talking about the Lonely Chapter, and it just came into my mind and it stuck there. And I sort of flew it by a few friends, people around me, and it just stayed with me for the next week or two. And at that point, I knew that was the name that I needed. Nothing had stayed with me for that long. Nothing had really grabbed me like that one grabbed me. And nothing resonated in the same level. So that is how the name of the podcast came about. So delving into my own experiences of the Lonely Chapter, and I'm going to speak again about one that I've spoken about before, just because I think it's probably quite a familiar one for people, especially now. I think more and more people are sort of going down this route. So it was about my decision at age 24 to go sober. So up until age 24, I didn't drink super often, but I was general UK teen into early 20s, going out at the weekends, drinking after football on Saturdays, and quite often getting a bit too drunk, having funny stories out of it, but not necessarily enjoying the day after. Well, definitely not enjoying the day after. but not necessarily always enjoying the time because I couldn't remember the time. So I decided to just go sober. I didn't really have a time frame for it. I didn't ever say that I wasn't going to go back. I didn't say it was for a year. I didn't say it for a month. I just decided to go sober. So it was at the same sort of time where I started to read more. I started to consume more content about self-help. I started to listen to more podcasts through the books and all of that content as well. I found like Stoicism and tried to like embody some of that mindset, as that really resonated with me as well. So when I started to do this, obviously some of the people that I hung out with, I only hung out with when we drank, and some of them only knew me drunk. So it's quite a weird relationship to have with someone anyway, but maybe if you're listening, you resonate with that and you might have people around that you feel the same way about. And it's not a knock on them and it's not a knock on me, but our paths changed. So naturally, that contact sort of fell away and we stopped going out. I think it's important to mention as well that when you drift away from people in your lonely chapter, it's not a bad reflection on them. It simply means that you're on a new path and they're on a different path. And at the moment, those two aren't compatible. So I learned how to be me in that time. So I stayed sober for 2 years. I went back to drinking in a very different way after, and I still don't really drink that much. But I learned how to socialize, which was the biggest thing. And I'd got to a point where I was really relying on alcohol to be social before. And it sort of scared me for a while that I felt that I had to do that. And luckily I could spot that and make action on it. But I think a lot of people are similar and a lot of people are in that position. So yeah, I learned how to socialize without the need for alcohol as a crutch. That was the biggest thing for me. And as I moved forward through the chapter, I found people who had similar interests to me, enjoyed talking about the new topics that I was learning about and taking interests in. And you start to build sort of new groups of people around your sort of how you are now. And as a result, I began to emerge from that lonely chapter of my life. So looking at potential other examples of the lonely chapter that you might encounter could be deciding to leave a stable income job. So you might leave behind your 9 to 5 and choose to go and become a YouTuber or follow another passion project of yours, go and create sustainable clothes and really just go all into that. And that again will be a big lonely chapter. You might end a relationship and decide to work on yourself. And that can be a massive thing. People sort of tie their identity into their relationship. You might know a lot of people through that person. And then as you come out of that, a lot of those people are gone. And again, you work on yourself. It could be starting a podcast. You could be spending the hours learning the craft, weekends reading, researching guests, trying to book in guests, and speaking to people on the internet as well. People think is weird, or why would you do that? Why would you want to put yourself on the internet? Like right now, I'm just talking straight into a phone. It's quite strange, but you sort of get used to it as time goes on. And if people think it's weird, I don't really care. Now, the lonely chapter will be tough. As detailed in the name, you can be isolated. It will feel lonely. It might not feel worth it. People might react negatively to your changes and try and guilt trip you back into your old way of living. Besides other people trying to drag you back into that old way of living, your internal dialogue might do it as well. So you might get that little voice in your head that says, is this really worth it? I've not seen any success yet. Should I just go back to doing what I was doing before? At least I know that it's comfortable. And again, that's one of the big things that you have to face. To overcome that and to start to overcome some of the negative emotions surrounding the lonely chapter, you need to understand the why of what you're doing. So you need to understand why you started, where you want to get to, why you wanted to change. So what didn't you like about that comfortable life? Yeah, it was comfortable, but what were the negatives? Which bits are you trying to get rid of? And it sort of takes me back to sort of Nietzsche's quote, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. So in my example, what did I want to change? Well, I didn't like who I was becoming. I didn't like the fact that I was relying on alcohol as a crutch to be social. That was quite scary. And like I said, very lucky that I managed to spot that and act on it. But you have to acknowledge it's going to be difficult. You have to acknowledge that you don't even know if it's going to work. It could be years before you get to your destination. It could you can never get to your destination. So, but with that in mind also, even if you don't get to your destination, you will learn so much from the journey, from those changes you make. Even if you don't get to where you ideally want to be at, you'll have progressed and developed yourself somewhat regardless. And you'll have learnt lessons. And again, I've spoken a lot to people on the podcast about learning lessons from failure. There's nothing wrong with failure. We're scared to fail. We're scared to be seen to fail, I think. I've seen this recently as well. We say we're scared to fail. I don't think so. I think when you're in public, it's different. If you're at home and you were going to, say you're going to do some kick-ups with a football. If you're sat in your bedroom and you do a few kick-ups and then you scuff it, it's completely different. If you're stood in the middle of Wembley Football Stadium pitch, there's 90,000 people watching you. They're all cheering you on, expecting you to do loads of kick-ups. If you fail, it's going to be 10 times worse. So it's that fear of failure in public, I think. And it's a strange analogy, but it sort of gets the point across. And I think it's important to acknowledge that it might not work. It might not get to exactly where you wanted to get to, but that's okay. You'll still learn from it. The other thing to remember is that it's temporary. However long it takes you, and whether you get to a destination or not, it will be temporary, because you'll either reach your destination and we're all good, or you won't. You'll have learned, and then you can try something new. But also putting in that bracket, it can be something that happens multiple times in your life. So once you've developed one stage of your life, there's plenty more development to go. And anyone who's done anything incredible with their lives and made multiple changes has probably gone through it multiple times. And you start to get familiar with it. You start to get more comfortable with it the more it goes on, but it's still there, and you still can feel quite lonely and isolated when you're making those changes to your life. So that's bringing us in to the end of sort of my talk through of the Lonely Chapter, my experiences, how we can sort of navigate and reframe. So sort of taking those negative feelings, but combating them with the whys, and understanding that even if we don't make it, we still learn, and trying to reframe it in that way as well. Trying to be less afraid of failing in public. People forget things very quickly, and we like to think people care a lot about us and what's going on in our lives. They're way more interested about what's going on in their own lives. So try not to worry as much about what they're thinking about you. Just do the thing, back yourself, and give it 100%. So if this resonates with you, what lonely chapter have you been in, or are you in one now? If you are, keep pushing through it, keep doing the work, and just trust the process and try and enjoy it as much as you can. It can be difficult, but it'll be rewarding at the end of it regardless. So let me know in the comments what your experience of the lonely chapter is. And once again, a big thank you to everyone who's joined me on this journey so far. I appreciate every single one of you. I'm excited to the next 50 episodes. I'm excited to throw those out there and speak to loads more cool people. If you could do something for me, please follow the show wherever you're listening to it. as it really helps sort of throw the show out into the algorithm and get shown to new people. If you also could rate the show if you enjoyed it, that also helps that as well. And that is the aim, to get more people involved, more people listening, and more people on this journey with me. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at Lonely Chapter Podcast. And lastly from me, thank you for listening and stay curious.